Hello friends, good morning to all of you. Today we will discuss in detail about another very important topic in drugs acting on autonomic nervous system. They are anticholinergic agents. So before going into the actual topic, let's have a little bit on its history. Scientists have been using solanaceous plants for health benefits, which were found to have poisonous natural products like Atropa belladonna, Hyoscyamus niger, Datura stramonium. These are all solanaceous plants where they found these plants, their extracts show significant activity on biological systems. And in close to 1900s, structures of bioactive components were elucidated. They are atropine, and isolation of atropine has significantly helped us in understanding parasympathetic system or vagus nervous system. That is what we had seen in the initial lectures in this lecture series. So in muscarinic section, we have seen if we activate muscarinic receptors or parasympathetic system, what we usually see is increase in muscle tonicity in smooth muscle organs. Hence, if muscle tonicity increases significantly, it leads to pain. So that's why anti-muscarinic agents are also called as parasympatholytic and also spasmolytic or smooth muscle relaxants. So these are all the terms which we use synonymously in case of anti-muscarinic agents. So depending upon the tissue from where we are relieving pain, the name of the or class of the drug will vary. Now let's see how many different types of health benefits we can derive from these drugs. Here we can help relieve spasms of smooth muscle of the gastrointestinal tract. In case of ulcer or spastic obstipation or otherwise pain related excessive spasms that are coming because of indigestion, etc. So in all these gastric smooth muscle can be relaxed, the spasms can be relieved. Next one is spasms of bile and urinary duct. So when there is a stone caliculi, that initiates significant pain because the system wanted to expel the stone. So that's why excessive pressure will be created by increased muscle tonicity. So that has to be relieved. Spasms of the region of female genital organs, especially dysmenorrhea, is a big problem. Next one is spasms in the region of respiratory tract. This is a very important health benefit because in case of bronchial asthma or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, where excessive constriction of bronchioles will happen because of overexposure to allergens. So there these muscarinic agents, anti-muscarinic agents or parasympatholytic agents can help in relieving asthmatic conditions. Urinary incontinence as a result of detrusor instability and neurogenic bladder. So this is again another big problem. So in these conditions, parasympatholytic agents help as this spasmolytic drugs. Another area where it helps us is central nervous system diseases like Parkinson's disease. The second one is bradycardic arrhythmias. Third one, gastric ulcer. In case of gastric ulcer, we have agents which help reduce gastric secretions. Okay, and also in the preparation of patients for anesthesia, because during surgeries, skeletal muscles as well as smooth muscles need to be in relaxed conditions. Otherwise, because of incisions, it initiates a lot of muscle activity and it ends up in having a spasm. So that's why smooth muscle and skeletal muscle relaxation is needed, where spasmolytics are of great help. So friends, these are the conditions where we use parasympatholytic agents. Let's see mechanism of action of the spasmolytic activity, because earlier in the beginning, in the introductory lectures itself, I gave you a clear understanding on how muscarinic receptors, especially M3 receptor, are we call it as activating receptor actually functions. Let's briefly see this in case of spasmolytic activity. So this is muscarinic activity, muscarinic receptor setup. So this is the muscarinic receptor. As I told you, this is the GPCR, G protein coupled receptor. So this is connected to alpha, beta, gamma subunits of proteins that are there inside the cell. So once when acetylcholine activates this GPCR, it initiates a cascade of events where this alpha subunit gets activated and it converts GTP to GDP. And further this activates phospholipase C. This phospholipase C hydrolyzes phospholipid bilayer, thereby it generates diacylglycerol and IP3, inoacetyl triphosphate. This diacylglycerol activates protein kinase C and switches on calcium pump influx, so that initiates influx of calcium, and for IP3 also activates the same channel. So increased, because calcium influx will increase intracellular positive ion concentration, and this generates the initiator potential that is needed for opening up of sarcoplasmic reticulum, where calcium ions are stored normally in case of muscle cells. Then these calcium ions are released into cytoplasm, and this flux actually generates a huge concentration of calcium in the cytosol. So this interacts with the actin myosin filaments, thereby initiates skeletal muscle, smooth muscle contraction, especially over here, muscle contraction to be muscle contraction. Hence, if we block this muscarinic activity over here with the help of drugs like atropine, all these cascade of events can be subdued or blocked. So this is the way how spasmolytic activity is coming in case of anti-muscarinic agents. So this is the structure of atropine. If you look at the structure of atropine, it's a very simple compound. We have an ester linkage over here and a tertiary amine and an aromatic compound on the other side. So that's why scientists have synthesized so many compounds with modified structural units on acid side as well as alcohol side. So this is what we call it as a tropic acid, and this is a propanol, propane or propanol. Okay, alcohol will be there. And that gave us a list of compounds which are some of them are clinically very useful. So we can classify them muscarinic antagonists as natural products, like as I told you, tropane alkaloids like atropine, scopolamine, etc. And the semi-synthetic derivatives are like they kept the amine part the same, changed the ester part, or otherwise they are modified the alkyl substitutions on nitrogen. This is the way. So here you can see ipratropium bromide, amino esters. What does it mean? Here you have amine and here you have ester, and this entire molecule is completely synthetic derivative. So in this type of compounds we call them as amino ester class of drugs. So here we have oxybutynine and glycopyrrolate. Okay, so these are the two drugs. The next one is amino ethers. The ester linkage is now replaced with ether. So amino ethers. So they look like diphenhydramine. Okay, orphanhydrin and then benzotropine. Orphanhydrin and benzotropine. So these are the two examples over here in amino ethers. The next one is amino alcohols, where we have over here an alcohol unit and then here we have a tertiary amine. So here example is procyclidine, trihexyl phenydyl. These are the two compounds we have in this category. Miscellaneous, like which are like propanthelin and dariphenacin. So these are examples for some of the miscellaneous compounds. So friends, as I told you, structure of atropine is relatively simple. So that's why scientists have done so many permutations and combinations with functional groups over here. So here this is the aryl group where one carbon is there, to which one substitution is going on that side, another substitution is going on this side. Second one is the linker group. So this linker group is what we here we have ester group is there. Ester group can be replaced with so many other groups. So the linkers can be changed. The second one is, the third one is the aliphatic amine part over here. We can do so many permutations and combinations here. So all that resulted in deriving some kind of a pharmacophore which helps us in understanding its structure activity relationships. So here X is the linker group, carbon is this carbon, and substitutions are this. So here we have CH2OH, benzene, and hydrogen attached to this carbon. Here we have CH2 n times N, means N is there, it is separated from the linker group by carbons. So how many carbons are needed? So that can also be added or deleted, otherwise the length of carbon chain can be controlled. Now let us see one by one. In structure activity relationships, first let us see R1 and R2. So here in case of R1 and R2, as we have seen in case of atropine, so here we can have aromatic or heteroaromatic rings, like in case of tropsium or tiotropium. Here we can have, here we have, you can see benzenes are there, but here we have thiophene are there. So both are biologically active. One of the ring can be a carbocycle, like in case of glycopyrrolate, we have a cyclopentane ring. And different rings gives us better activity. Among all these three, glycopyrrolate has better activity. It is like that. Don't go beyond 6 carbons in individual ring. Here the observation is, if we go from benzene to naphthalene, the entire compound will lose its biological activity. Most probably it is because of the excessive steric hindrance at the receptor pocket. So that is what was their observation. And both rings can be joined to form a tricyclic ring. It is like we have two benzene rings are over here, we can join them. Like in case of propanthelene, the two benzene rings were joined via a phenolic ether bond over here. Still it has biological activity. So this is the way how we can see how modifications in the this area alters the biological activity. The next one is R1 and R2 we have seen. R3. R3 can be simple hydrogen or a hydroxy group or a CH2OH or even CONH2. All of them can show biological activity. Having OH or CH2OH was found to be optimal for the biological activity because it enhances interactions with the receptor pocket, like in case of procyclidine and trihexyl phenydyl. The next one is the linker group. Linker group can be an ester group. It is found that ester group gave us most potent drugs, but it is not essential. That's what is very, very important. It's not essential. So we can have an ether group over here, like in case of orphanedrine and benztropine, or you can even have a carbon over there, no problem. Okay. In case of nitrogen, quaternary ammonium salt shows highest potency, but the problem is it will carry along with it so many side effects. And also pharmacokinetic parameters can also create problem, because if it is highly polar, it cannot cross blood, it cannot have optimal absorption profile. So that's why quaternary ammonium salts are very few in this category. Tertiary amines, whatever we have, they are good enough, because in body pH they get ionized so that they will show biological activity. Substituents on nitrogen, maybe you can have methyl, ethyl or isopropyl if you are substituting nitrogen individually, or else nitrogen can be a part of a heterocyclic ring, absolutely no problem. In case of atropine, we have a heterocyclic ring only, and here also you can see in case of procyclidine or triphenhexadiol, we have a heterocycle only. Okay, so like this. Or if you wanted to substitute, like in case of orphanedrine, two methyl groups are there, we can replace the methyl groups with ethyl or isopropyl, still you can have biological activity. The distance between nitrogen and substituted carbon over here after X, so this carbon, so this distance is what they found is there is no such restriction, but distance between X and nitrogen and carbon, if it is 2 to 4 atoms, then they found optimal biological activity. So these are the observations whatever they made, which we can see in case of structure activity relationships they observed for development of anti-muscarinic agents. So here let us see individual agents. The first one is atropine. Atropine is the oldest of the drugs that we can see in case of muscarinic antagonists. This is highly potent. Because as I told you, this is the model compound or a probing molecule. Okay, so used for studying muscarinic receptor system in our body. So it shows all kinds of activity of parasympatholysis. Like it shows CNS activity, it shows vagus activity, and it also shows peripheral activities. All kinds of activities you can see in case of atropine. But in the beginning, people used this molecule as a mydriatic. Right now, it is an experimental molecule only, or it's a model molecule or a lead molecule for the development of better drugs. We have so many other drugs have come which has replaced completely atropine. So here homotropin. What is the difference between tropin and homotropin? They hydroxy group. So here we have one carbon less. Okay, it is used topically as a mydriatic again, because large quantity of, because so many the anti-muscarinic agents you will see they are being used in case of peripheral activities like treatment of glaucoma or eye observation, etc. The diagnosis part. Ipratropium bromide is a very important compound where the nitrogen in the tropin unit, nitrogen is substituted with isopropyl unit. Here what they found is it is used for treatment of asthma and COPD. It's a very potent bronchial muscle relaxant. Scopolamine has a very interesting application. Scopolamine, the levo component, obviously, because in case of alkaloids, levo compounds they show biological activity, whatever is meant for that. Okay, scopolamine is an effective in the prevention of, it is very effective in the prevention of motion sickness. Scopolamine formulations are available as patches or a transdermal formulation which we stick behind our earlobe okay, during travel, so that it prevents motion sickness. It's not as effective as atropine in blocking higher nerve centers. Okay, CNS activity relatively less. So the next one is cyclopentolate. Okay, can you tell me which category it belongs to? Is it an amino alcohol? Is this an amino alcohol? Or see here, the carbon over here is the junction point to which hydrogen is attached. So this is alkyl amine. This is an alkyl amine, but we have a hydroxy group over here. Cyclopentolate is used as a mydriatic. The advantage with this one is it is very quick as far as the onset of action is concerned, and short duration of action. Let us say you went to an optometrist or otherwise eye specialist. So, during eye observation they apply this solution and then they will ask you to wait for some time. Most of you, whoever is carrying spectacles, okay, have faced this problem. Then they will after once the observation is done, then you need somebody else's help to go to your home. Okay, so the reason is the mydriatic action stays for longer periods of time, whereas in case of cyclopentolate the duration of action is very less. So you can get back your vision very quickly. Blurring of vision can be relieved. Glycopyrrolate is a very good drug molecule for treatment of peptic ulcer and gastrointestinal disorders associated with spasm. Because in case of peptic ulcer, two problems will be there. One is excessive release of glandular secretions. The second one is the pain due to the ulcer, because pain initiates the spasmic signals. Because of this spasm, many problems will come. So, to relieve both these, we can make use of glycopyrrolate. Next one is clinidium bromide. In case of clinidium bromide, it is a bronchodilator. It is used in asthmatic conditions. It has a long lasting effect as compared to beta 2 agonists. Okay, in case of asthma conditions, right now people are using beta agonists, bronchial, that we will see in the next lecture sessions, and it is equipotent. Propanthyline is another very interesting molecule, where this is one of the example where we have 3 rings tricyclic derivative. Yeah, this is used in peptic ulcer, relieving peptic ulcer problems. Dicyclomine is one of the examples where we have both the rings are cyclohexanes. There is no aromatic ring over here. So this is an anti-muscarinic and non-specific antispasmodic agent, especially used because the dicyclomine formulations you can find plenty in the market. Spasms in the GI tract, especially due to indigestion or infection, wherever these colic pains etc. can be efficiently relieved with the dicyclomine formulations. It is also used in dysmenorrhea. The next one is orphanedrine. It is used for Parkinson's disease and it is a very good. It can also relieve skeletal muscle pain also. Procyclidine is also used for treatment of Parkinson's disease, voluntary muscle spasticity through its central action. Benzotropine mesylate, it has anticholinergic, antimuscarinic, antihistaminic and local anesthetic activities. It is used for the treatment of Parkinson's disease. Bipyridine, this is a very potent molecule used for Parkinson's disease. Profenamine is or ethopropazine is a very interesting molecule where we have a phenothiazine unit. So this is a phenothiazine unit. Phenothiazines you can find in case of antipsychotic agents, okay, where we have here a chlorine unit will be there, like a chloropropazine or the chlorpromazine. This has anticholinergic, antihistaminic and antiadrenergic actions. It was used for Parkinson's disease, for the treatment of Parkinson's disease. It is also used for the alleviation of extrapyramidal side effects that we usually observe in case of antipsychotic therapies. Isopropamide is one of the example where you can see here the substitution means R3 is a CONH2 in case of R3, because R1 and R2 are benzenes. Here in case of R3 we have CONH2. This is one of the example. Isopropamide, here you can see 2 isopropyl units and then it is a quaternary ammonium salt. So it has long lasting anticholinergic activity. It is used in the treatment of peptic ulcers and hypermotility of GI tract. Methanthelin is again another 3-ring containing drug molecules or tricyclic drug molecules, anti-muscarinic agents. Methanthelin is used for treatment of intestinal or stomach ulcers or peptic ulcer disease. Intestinal problems like irritable bowel syndrome, pancreatitis, gastritis or pylorospasm or urinary problems. So these are treated with the help of methanthelin. Tridihexethyl is again another drug molecule. It is now not in use actually. It was used for peptic ulcer, management of peptic ulcer, but right now people are not using it because of excessive side effects. It's a onium ion. As I told you, whenever we have an onium ion, like in case of this or isopropamide, their applicability is very, very less. So friends, to summarize whatever we have seen today, anticholinergic agents reduce tonicity of smooth muscle. Largely they reduce tonicity of smooth muscle. So you will find in most of the cases they are used as spasmolytics. And the second major application is in eye, and the third application is in CNS related diseases like Parkinson's disease. Solaneous alkaloids like atropine are prototype molecules for development of anti-muscarinic agents. And in fact, atropine is one of the oldest molecule known to us as far as pharmacotherapy is concerned. As you can see, the atropine molecule is very simple in as far as structure is concerned. That's why hundreds of molecules were synthesized and tried. So that gave us a handful of molecules which can be classified as one natural products like atropine, semi-synthetic derivatives like epratropium, amino esters like glycopyrrolate, amino ethers like orphanedrine, amino alcohols like procyclidine, and miscellaneous agents like profenamine. So these are some of the examples, or in these 6 categories we can classify all these anticholinergic agents. And these studies have also gave us some pharmacophoric features which helps us in the study of structure activity relationships. So here in this model we can have R1 and R2 can be carbocycles, both aromatic, heteroaromatic or simple cycloalkyl groups. We can have 6 carbons or less than that for optimal activity. If you go beyond a benzene ring, like in case of if you keep R1 and R2 as naphthalines, it will lose its biological activity. R3 can be hydrogen, hydroxyl or CH2OH or CONH2, carbamide. All of them can have biological activities. Then the X is a linker. Linker means some functional group which joins both these. So here classically we have an ester group which gave us optimal biological activity, but instead of ester we can also have an ether, we can have simple carbon can join them. Okay, so like this. And here the last one is amine and CH2, chain length. Amine need to be at least tertiary, okay, less than tertiary it will lose its biological activity significantly. It can be a tertiary or quaternary ammonium salt. Quaternary ammonium functional group gives us optimal or high potency, but it will have many side effects. That's the problem. That's why we need to keep tertiary ammonium amino functional group over there, which can help us in getting very good absorption also. And then the distance between the quaternary carbon over here and nitrogen can be 2 to 4 atoms. 2 is optimal, but you can go up to 4 atoms. So these are the observations whatever we have seen in the structure activity relationships. So friends, with this I conclude the parasympatholytics. and we are also coming to the end of unit 3. So this concludes anti-muscarinic agents or otherwise drugs acting on cholinergic receptors. So in the there is another brief presentation is there next to this one, where we discuss a little bit about the synthesis of important cholinergic drugs, cholinergic or anticholinergic drugs. So friends, please go through the lectures thoroughly, and if you have any doubts, please raise in our forum, or you can type in the comments, so that we will have I will clarify if you have any other doubts. Thank you for patient listening, and see you all again in the next lecture. Thank you.